Hi, my name's Chris from Oui Communicate. I'm a French coach for adults, and I had a thought yesterday, and I find that sometimes truths are staring us in the face and we fail to see them somehow. I'm talking about a general consumer behavior that we all have and how it affects our results as French learners in this case, but other areas of life also. My point is, I think there's a general distrust in almost everything. Not cynicism necessarily, but a distrust. Certainly, we expect things not to work. We expect things to break down. We expect our politicians to let us down. We expect social media not to be factual. We expect our electronics to fall apart. We expect our shoes to wear out too fast. We expect our Netflix or Disney films to be awful. We expect our car to depreciate faster than ice cream in the sun. If we look at the playing field in which we live, I think we've become used to expect the worst. And it applies to me too, I just wasn't seeing it until yesterday. The level of distrust is generally very high. For example, when my wife called me to say there was something wrong with the lawn trimmer, I expected it to be broken. The thing's barely a year old. I would be surprised if it lasted for 5 years. When the guy from the solar panel company comes to make his pitch, regularly see him every few months, I expect him to take advantage of me in some way. I don't expect his product to make my life better. My mechanic just made me pay $1,000 on our Volkswagen. I expect the next repair to be on its way very soon. And before I talk specifically about language learning, I want to point out that this behavior works the other way around also. And I notice that we're overwhelmed more and more when things go right, when things work well, and I think it says something. We start to share videos on social media about random acts of kindness, such as helping someone across the street. We take photos of our plate at the restaurant because of this rush of happiness, just because our food looked palatable. And I don't think it's to boast necessarily. I think it's just a pure moment of joy that things went as planned. When we go to an Airbnb, we're pleasantly surprised that the keys were where the owner said they would be, and that the place looks clean. I think that the level of expectancy that we have is so low, the trust is so low, that it's become a normal part of life, and it's become our filter. Deep down, I think each of us wants something that they can hang on to, and that brings us joy and reassurance, but the instability of our world makes these things very hard to find. And I think that this explains why we go niche. It's reassuring, it's a thing that works in the world, versus everything else that doesn't. A person can find the same emotion with instruments, with guitars. You know, a teenager looks at their first guitar in a shop and sees a beautiful object that never breaks, it's perfect, it's reassuring, they can trust it, it's a foundation. Whatever it is, we tend to find that one thing that gets us close to a functional system, and that's different from the chaos outside. I think it's a societal matter of trust versus distrust. So how does all of this affect language learning, you might wonder? Well, if I found a website of some guy claiming that if I paid him $300, I'd know Japanese afterwards, why would I believe him? My defense mechanism would go up. I would think it's a lie. I would think there's nothing comparable in this life that I've ever experienced, no product that I've ever seen that does the equivalent of making me speak a new language. It's just too massive. The best I can hope for is a lawnmower that doesn't break down, a delivery guy that doesn't get the order wrong, and a film that's well written. And you're telling me that I can learn Japanese or French? It sounds so far-fetched. It almost sounds like something that Joe Rogan would say.
Apparently there's this guy somewhere in America, some linguistics dude, you pay him like $200 and you end up knowing French. You don't even have to use other apps or textbooks. You go to him and you know French. I think his name is Oui Communicate or something, some European dude.
The world doesn't usually work like that. In my French classes, there's a lady, an American in her 50s, and she learned French to a very good level in less than 200 hours. She was conversational within 200 hours. I remember the day we did the maths together because we found some statistics online and we asked ourselves, did we do that? You know, we worked out we did it in less than 200 hours and she was conversational. But since then, I've always wanted to know what made her different. What was the factor that made her different? And I found the answer yesterday. The thing is, she's not as conditioned by society as much as the rest of us. She has no idea about Instagram. She has no clue about the daily news. She's completely unaware of all the typical consumer traps. And for whatever reason, her radar told her, yeah, Chris is the guy to do it. Chris can teach me French. And I think she approached it with an incredible openness of mind, an openness to belief. It's almost a purity. It really is. I think her signal was picking up on my signal without any of the usual distrust. That's the only way I can explain it. But where it gets interesting is I've had obviously other students who had access to the exact same material as she did, who I don't think believed. And I think it's possible that a defense mechanism told them that it couldn't work as well as I said it did. But it's not their fault, and I'm not blaming anyone. I think their distrust is so big that they can't believe anymore. It's like a subconscious defense. Why would I be able to experience French in my lifetime? Why? It doesn't represent anything else I see in society. It's just too big. I'll tell you another story. Once I was doing a French class with a young girl, a teenager. She was still in high school, local girl. And we were doing modal verbs. Je peux, je dois, je veux. And I told her where the worksheet was on the website, and the following week I asked her how it went, and she said, yeah, okay. I don't forget the exact words, but she essentially said, oh yeah, okay, went all right. You know, I used the app Quizlet to revise them. She ultimately didn't learn much. Two events might be unrelated, but she didn't learn much, and I was a bit offended, frankly. Why wouldn't you use my stuff? Why Quizlet? But I think that the undeniable truth about it was that she saw me as an okay tutor, local guy, okay tutor with an okay competence, but nothing out of the ordinary, at least nothing that could rival with Quizlet. And it was a trust issue, but a trust in herself and a trust in me also. So my point is that even as a teenager, she was already conditioned to a degree. She had conditioned her own future success as a learner of French, but also regarding myself, I really couldn't be that good, could I? So I really don't know if I have any wise words to conclude this video, other than it's worth asking ourselves if our results in our foreign language of choice are really just not the consequence of a generalized distrust that we share as a society. If the bar is usually here, why would I believe that the bar could be here? What would cause that? You know, we're looking for patterns. If the pattern I mostly see in society reflects dysfunction in some way, why would I think that in my lifetime I can pick up a whole new language? Why? Why would I think that? Why indeed would you believe that you can learn French in a year?